Hello everyone, my name is Phrimna Valerious, and today we will be learning the most traditional, the most conventional form of literary criticism, traditional paradigm. And we will be studying it by using this particular essay by William Henry Hudson called Some Ways of Studying Literature. Before we start with any literary criticism, it is important for us to first define what exactly is literature. Only then can we criticize or analyze it. Before we analyze a literary text, it is very important to define what exactly is literature. In this particular essay itself, in the beginning, we find that Hudson is trying to define what exactly is literature. Literature can also be loosely termed as anything and everything that is printed or written. It can also include the newspapers that you read. It can include the books that you read, the magazines, or the telephone directories. All of that. It is very important to realize and to understand that literature is a term that is subjective to each one of us. To one, literature can be broadly classified. To another, it can be narrowed down to only a particular set of books in the library. Therefore, we find that literature, because it is not defined by everybody in the same light, therefore, we are not able to define what exactly is literature. Some books provide information to us, some appeal to our heart, and it's very difficult to actually define what exactly is literature. But there are a few criterion to define what exactly is literature. The first one is that it should be of general human interest. It should appeal to a larger section of the population, irrespective of the age, the time in which the book is written, and also irrespective of the time in which the book is being read. The second one is element of form. Element of form is nothing but the structure in which that particular book or that particular work is written. It could be a poem, it could be a novel, it could be an epic, it could be anything. Now, the second one is aesthetic satisfaction. It should provide pleasure to the readers. So these are the basic criterion for literature. Now, let's also see about how literature and life are intermingled. One of the reasons that literature is so important to traditional paradigm is because it is connected with life. So we see that deep and lasting human significance is important in literature. Literature is very important with respect to traditional paradigm because it is connected with the life of the author, the experiences of the author. And we see there is this deep and lasting human significance. The whole idea that it is actually embodying all the experiences, the temperament of the author, the experiences of the author, and reflecting the same in the particular book. Therefore, all the books that we see are mere reflections of the author's life through the medium of language. In traditional paradigm, it's important to understand why the author writes what he does. So, the first one is a desire for self-expression. Man is a social animal. Therefore, he would always want the other to partake of his experiences. So, therefore, he would want to self-express. The second one is interest in people and their doing. The people that the author has met would be reflected in his books. The experiences that he had would be reflected in his book. So his social interactions is part of it. The third one is world of reality and world of imagination. The first one, world of reality. How is he adjusting to the world around him? How is he adjusting to the situations around him? That is also important. And the second one, what is he doing to transcend that reality and to make it a better world, or to transcend that reality and make things better? So that is world of imagination. Now the next one is love of form as form. That is nothing but the structure in which the work is done. It could be the structure of the novel, the poem, or any other body of work. Now let's discuss about the themes of literature. It is broadly classified into 5 categories. But remember that these are not the only categories. So the first one is personal experiences of the individual as individual, where the man travels within himself and portrays his emotions onto the book. And the second one is general experiences of man. In general experiences of man, we see man actually questioning a lot of things around him, like life, death, God, destiny, is there a God? Things like that. And the next one is relations of individuals with his fellow and his society. Man is a social animal, therefore his social interaction and the way that he functions around with the institutions like schools, colleges, government, the police force, all these institutions that he has to actually handle and go around with. So we see that in this particular theme. The next one is external world of nature. So anything and everything, every element of nature that we see around us, the rustling of the leaves, the blowing of the breeze, the sun, the moon, the mountains, the sky, everything will come under this. And the next one is the most important, man's effort to express and create. So every person has this desire to create something new, to make a mark for himself. So therefore, man is doing all of this to actually create something new. Since we're studying traditional paradigm, it is very important for us to consider all the contribution the writer has to make in his body of work. So all the elements that he is putting into the literature. The first one is the intellectual element, what he is thinking. The second one is the emotional element, what the author is feeling and what he wants the reader to feel. All the emotions that he wants to stimulate in the reader. The next one is element of imagination, right? Everything the author is also at the same time creating something new from the reality that he is adjusting with. And then we come to the next one, technical element. This is the structure in which he is writing all of this. The symmetry, the order, the composition, the style, the figurative language, all of that will come under this technical element. Now moving on to the next slide. Literature as an expression of personality. We see that Matthew Arnold has actually said that literature is a criticism of life. Very true. Because the author, once he has experienced his life and he has used that experience to write it down on a piece of paper, we realize his temperament, his attitude will also be reflected in that. How he sees the other person, that will be reflected in that. So it is not just the documentation of life, but criticizing it, analyzing it, and trying to find a way out of everything. Great book is born of the brain and the heart of its author. Therefore, there is this need to understand the author's life and see it reflected in the book. And it's very important for us to realize the importance of genuine voices and see if these are the author's expression or are they mere echoes. Because when we are reading a body of work, we need to realize and understand the author's life to come to the conclusion if this is what exactly he wanted to express, or is this something that he's expressing because a lot of authors, a lot of people in his time are expressing the same. To truly get around traditional paradigm and understand the traditional way of literary criticism, we need to include methodology, a type of method into our reading. We cannot take a random book and say that we are doing a literary criticism. It will not happen like that. We need to inculcate a habit. We need to implement a certain kind of methodology or method into it. So there are two basic forms in which we will study the traditional paradigm. The first one is the chronological method. In here, we focus solely on the author and his body of work. So we take the first book that he has written and we read his next book and next book. And what really happens is that we see the evolution of the author, the evolution of his ideas. The second way of studying literary criticism, traditional paradigm of literary criticism, is through comparative method. In comparative method, we compare the author with the authors of that particular era, the time in which they have written, the body of work that they have produced, and we compare and contrast them. Chronological method and comparative method are not the only form of methodology to go about traditional paradigm. There are many more. With this, we conclude some ways of studying literature. I hope you like the class.